Hello. I'm back. It's been a while. The Yandere project develops over the years with the speed of a paralyzed sloth. In between infighting, drama-mongering, and pretending to be internet spies, Alex's neglected pets may deliver new assets. In this video I will go through the contents of the project I overlooked in the past and take a look at some new ones. Since my last dumpster diving into the asset folders, it had become even more disorganized. I could not locate many corresponding textures and meshes, even by manual search. Unfortunately, I'm not paid enough to do this tedious work. In fact, I'm not being paid in any currency or service, so I quit this effort and decided to present my findings as they are. Let's begin. First item in my list, Sabotage Power Strip. It has 4,317 polygons, triangulated. All the models in this video will be triangulated. It's the item we see in the game and it's being used. At first glance there is nothing to it, but if you look a little closer, the wires have a bit too much detail, a lot more than what they deserve. The cord also has more sides than necessary. Mesh smoothing will hide the corners, and players generally never have to see this item up close. There are many meshes like this, with some big parts optimized modestly and some parts left to be. Modern graphics cards are not very sensitive to polygon count, but it affects performance for the low-end machines. The texture file to this mesh has relatively high resolution of 1024 pixels. This is the resolution for an item, as big as a hand of a character which is going to be placed on the floor and never to be looked on up close. But that's not all. The image doesn't have any small details or intricate designs that would require the texture map to have high resolution. Alex, being the only man managing the development, is also the game's art director, and as an art director he should be knowledgeable about technical aspects of graphics. But he doesn't know about such thing as texel density, and this asset shows this hole in his competence. Not that we already know his competence is pretty much a slice of a Swiss cheese. Thin and full of large holes. Consistent texel density is important in games art. It makes the elements of the game world belong to each other. I'd change the texture's resolution to match with other assets to show you how it's done, but I'll save it for another video if it will come to it. Next item is a generic character mesh, with head but no hair. You may see it does not look right. This software smooths mesh surfaces by default, but it doesn't happen here. What prevents it? This model is not a single continuous surface, but instead multiple patches, and they don't even hold together. Its polygon count is 7,520, but its vertex count is off the charts. It's very easy to fix, just weld vertices together. Resulting vertex amount is almost 4 times lower. It doesn't seem this model has any use in the game, it's just broken, but it's still present in the project. By the way, there are very many models like this. It's just one of them. Now, my favorite. The knife. From distance it looks decent. But if you take a closer look, the mesh has 7,744 polygons. Turning on the wireframe reveals it's a high poly model, and not a good one. Under closer examination we can see it has detached polygons at unexpected places. The mesh is not unwrapped. It seems to me Alex broke mesh down into different pieces to apply multiple materials to different parts. It's not even a good mesh to begin with. I have never seen blades welded to handles. Don't worry, this mesh is not used in the actual game, it's simply present in the project. What I find interesting is that Alex had removed the toothbrush. Why did he leave this, if it's no longer in use? Next. This item is pretty odd. A bucket. Being on this list, you may assume it has an appropriate amount of polygons, and you would be right. It has 9,280 polygons. I'm not sure if this mesh is used in the game. There was another file named Bucket, but it was as broken as one of the meshes mentioned before. Now time for something more complex. Mesh named Yandere, 15,720 polygons. It's a small and detailed model. I have opened it with lots of detached polygons, so I had to do the fixing in my examination of the asset. It could have less polygons, but generally this model is made all right. The only concern are cylindrical shapes. Nothing too outrageous. Finally something normal for a change. Or not. After further examination of the UV channels, it's revealed this model requires 3 different texture maps. The artist didn't even have the decency to move overlapping areas away on the UV coordinates. It would still work the same, but look cleaner and show which parts belong where. It looks like the asset was not finished. Some parts don't have texture map showing right, or it could be me not setting up the right map. Well, I have my limits. The texture map files show they are pretty huge. 2,000 pixels each, but the look of the texture barely reaches the quality of 500 pixel map. The general quality of the texture is not just awful, it looks like someone's first attempt at texturing. Note the seam in the middle. It's just not acceptable. It seems the artist doesn't know how to work with symmetry. All these 3 big textures could have fit into a single one, and still retain the awful quality. This item is pretty simple. A plane. A plane with 20,000 polygons. It's titled Water Plane. Looks like this geometry was used in earlier version of the pool to create waves and ripples. As of now, the water at the pool is flat, the visuals are managed by material. I'm not sure if Alex still uses this plane. Nothing else to see here. The last polygonal freak of the show. A simple building. You may have guessed pretty much every item on this list has some sin hidden in it. This item is not an exclusion. This box is made of 26,424 polygons. I was confused at first. Where does all the data come from? If we will look inside, we will find it's another instance of models merged in one mesh container. Just look at all the cakes. I'm certain this is the kind of shop Mulberry goes to for her daily groceries. This does not look like a crude asset downloaded from the internet or extracted from some other video game. I may very well be wrong. It appears to be all merged intentionally. For what purpose I don't know, but it's pretty odd. Wouldn't instancing of the objects make it better? It's amusing to me how light on polygons the cakes are, while buns and bread are rich in edges and vertices. In generally this is a good modeling. I like how smooth the paper bags look. That's it for the list of heavy models. Now, time for something spicy. This is where the kids should turn off the video. I have seen many, very many naked girls, and to my amusement some boys as well, in the mesh files. All of those meshes were pretty much generic dummies, and remnants of some edits. This one is special. It's called Succubus. It has very skimpy design and kinky details to it. I have never seen anything like this in the actual game, but through the span of 2 years this file remains in the project. I should note the project has a whole lot of garbage that no one ever seen being used. Mesh files have many items associated with this model, too many for me to bother to load all of them and try on. Let's take a look at textures associated with this model instead. Somehow it makes it even more skimpy. The texture files have plenty of oddities, such as multiple versions of ripped uniform, lots of them. Let's try them on. The associated meshes are different to what we see in the game. It shows a lot more skin than I expected. I wonder what is this for? Looking more into the texture files, there are texture maps with facial expressions baked into them. This one looks like she's being ejected from the atmosphere on a jet of diarrhea. It's not just textures, there are various illustrations. This one is weird, it gives me very fat vibes, greasy. This set of images is peculiar. As you can see, they are very erotic, and, in my opinion, belong in an adult game. Alex may not see it as something inappropriate, as a weeb he's used to very revealing and provocative content. I haven't seen them anywhere in the game, and I don't recall any mentions of these. There is a lot more assets we never see in the game, and those that don't seem to have any practical application. Pretty much all the grotesque polygonal globs shown in my previous video are still in the project, with the exception of Toothbrush. It was a chore to look through the files. Everything that was made by volunteers have naming that throws textures and models apart. I can't imagine how Alex manages this mess. Will the project ever get out of the development hell? Will we see Ozana this year? Will Alex finish the game before Mulberry gets diabetes?